Okay, we're going to be looking at these Areo mirrors on this 2020 Volvo VNR. I see there are a lot of videos out there on the Volvo VNLs, and they just have like the regular steel tubing on the mirror. And I just wanted to show you guys how to take apart these mirrors because I couldn't find any information on them, and they're a bit of a pain to take apart. So this truck specifically came in because of the antenna. It was flopping around. And what had happened is I think the driver bumped into something, and there's a mounting piece, it looks like this, that was actually, it mounts to a bracket that's inside of the mirror. And what happens is there's like a nut, it's just made out of like cheap white metal or aluminum, and it was already split and broken, but just basically finished it off. Now, it's sad because this truck's only 3 years old, but as you can see, this metal, very, very corroded, very cheap. And I'm guessing you just get a lot of moisture that gets trapped in the mirror and it rots out this metal, and then the metal just ends up fracturing. And yeah, so this mounting piece here, like I say, it gets mounted into a bracket. I'll show you when we go up there. And then the coax cable for the antenna plugs into the bottom. And on the coax cable, there is a stainless steel retaining nut that spins, that screws onto this threaded portion that is part of this here. So it threads on. Now, I was lucky enough to still have enough of a stainless steel retaining nut on the coax cable that I could clean it up and reuse it. It's just barely reusable, but we're going to reuse it anyways because we can make it work, and we're not going to buy, I think you got to buy a whole mirror to get that cable. It could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what you got to do. These are some of the tools that you're going to need in order to do this job. You will need probably a big flathead screwdriver for separating the plastic. You will need, if you're just trying to get the housing apart, yeah, you'll need this. You'll need a bunch of either small flathead screwdrivers or something like this. These are the snap-on seal removal tools, but they work great because they're flat and they're slim. I can sneak them into places. And then a 90-degree pick comes in real handy for, there's a lot of locking tabs that just snap in place. So you go in there and you can pry them open using a 90-degree pick. If you're doing this job with the antenna, you'll also want a razor blade, and you may want some side cutters or pliers. And I don't think I needed a 6mm Allen key, but there are some bolts I'll show you that are in there that mount the whole mirror assembly to the actual steel tube structure frame. And then these two wrenches are to remove and install this new antenna mounting thing. But the razor blade's to cut this heat shrink off. The heat shrink goes around the retaining nut and the coax cable to keep it all locked together, and I think it's to keep moisture out, but really it just allowed moisture to stay trapped in there and just rot it out, which is sad. I was unable to get these, this is the mirror, the main mirror. I was unable to get these electrical connector pieces off. I really tried, and you can see the heater grid that's in behind here that heats up the mirror. And that's what these are for. But I was really, really pulling, and I was super afraid that I was just gonna rip them off of the actual heater pad underneath. So what I did was mark them, which one goes where, and I just cut them, and I'll do a wiring repair to put them back on. There's nothing wrong with that. So let's jump up here and I'll run over some things with you. So if you wanna go on the ladder. Now, to start, you can see this is our main mirror housing here. I'll show you, you can video this side. The first thing that you're gonna wanna do is remove the mirror glass. So you can see on this square piece here, there are tabs. Okay, these fingers lock into the back of the mirror housing. The mirror housing itself has a bunch of fingers. And in order to remove that glass, all you're going to do is you'll push in on the glass slightly and pull up, and I just had to stick my fingers in underneath the bottom. I sort of had the mirror glass tilted out, slanted outwards at the top so that I could grab a hold of it, and I just slightly push in and lift up and it slides off. Like I say, the only thing that else is going to be holding that on is the wiring for the heated mirror pad, and I just marked them and cut those ones. The next thing to take off is the lower mirror, and it's the same deal. It just has these fingers along the inside, and you just lift up on it and it slides out of place. I just let that dangle. It's fine there, gets out of the road. Once you get that off, the next step that you need to do is to remove the inner Areo portion. And there's 3 main pieces of plastic that make this section here. You've got the forward facing outer section here, which is one huge piece. You can see that. And then you have on the bottom, there's a cap that goes in here. And then on the top, once again, the same thing, rearward facing cap. Now these cap pieces are secured using, they have metal tie straps that go around the bar in case, let's say for instance, a bird hits it or something and breaks the plastic, it doesn't fly off and go into traffic or whatever. It's somewhat secured. So all I needed to do was just separate them and get them to move out of the way so that I could get that back cap off of the mirror. And I wanted to do that obviously so that I could gain access to this mounting nut, hardware, and coax cable. So once you've got the glass out, like I say, next thing we got to do is deal with these plastic trims. Now, to start, what's going to happen is underneath, it's a little tricky to see, but there are 2 spots. You'll see 2 little slots here and here, and that's where this tab and this tab are. And all you got to do is just use like a small flathead screwdriver, or like I say, use something like this, and you can get in the hole and sort of pry. Just be very careful. This plastic is very brittle. It will break. It does have some flex to it, but you need to just really massage it and take your time. This is a job that requires a lot of patience if you don't want to break anything. Once you release those 2 tabs, you can then get my big flathead screwdriver. I use that to go right in between the 2 pieces of plastic, and I just start working along and back and forth until it starts to separate. The last piece that sort of keeps them together besides those 2 tabs is there is one more retaining tab, and I'll get you to stand up on here and I'll show you where that is. And it's the same top and bottom. They're almost like a mirror image, but you can see this locking tab right here. And this is where this sort of wraps around. And the 90-degree pick worked really well to unlatch this tab here. So I just came in through the front this way with the 90-degree pick, and I was able to unlatch that and get this to pop off. So once you get those 2 pieces off, this big outer piece basically becomes free, and you're able to sort of shift it out of the way. And then once that is free, then you can move on to removing this back section, this big back cap here. So in order to do that, there are 6 mounting clips. They're just plastic clips. And I'll show you what you'll be able to see. You can come back on this ladder. So take note of, there will be 6 slots that have arrows on them. You'll be able to see them, I believe, somewhere along here. A couple of these slots will have arrows pointing to them. And you can see this is the orientation that this back cap sits on the mirror. So there's your 6 clips right here. So what you're going to do is just I have a bunch of these things. So I went in and I was actually able to jam these in place to keep them outwards. You could use small flathead screwdrivers, you could use something like that. It's difficult to use just your fingers and undo one at a time because they like to snap back closed. So once you get those off, then you can stick a flathead screwdriver between them and sort of work along until it begins to separate, and then this thing comes off. And that brings us to about this point that we're at now. So there's quite a few little details into taking this thing off, and I really couldn't find any information that was very specific on doing this job, so I hope this video helps you. Now, if you're at this point and you want to change this piece, you will need, like I say, at this point, you're going to use a razor blade, and there'll be a heat shrink that's on this, and you'll go ahead and cut that heat shrink and remove it. And you'll most likely notice that this will probably be all white and corroded. But you'll want to disassemble this. Hopefully this coax stainless steel nut is salvageable. Like I say, you can see the brake where that chunk is missing, but there was enough of the nut left that I could still thread it on. The fellow that I work with was able to supply me with a new retaining nut that gets installed into this bracket here. So we just installed that, and yeah, basically I'll take this off quick because I'm gonna have to JB weld this so that it doesn't come off again, and if it does screw up again, it's just gonna end up getting all replaced, so we're not too worried about that as far as serviceability. But basically just clean everything. You got to replace that one section that goes bad, that houses these pieces here. This is the piece that you got to replace. So this nut right here is threaded onto this portion here, and I'll show you. I just need to remove the antenna. The antenna is, I believe, either a 9/16 or a 13 millimeter. And then that nut that the antenna screws into is a 14 millimeter. So I'll get this antenna out of the road, and then we'll take this nut off here. And it's real simple, we just get this off. There is almost a ceramic washer that isolates that, that whole assembly from the bracket. I'm just gonna let this down. There's this little ceramic washer and a lock washer that keeps the nut locked in place. We will move this out of the road so you can have a better look. So you can see this is the piece that we replace, and then you can see the chunk of stainless steel nut that's missing. The coax cable just has like a needle that sticks up inside of here that mates with this copper section, which then connects to the antenna. So it all just threads together. That piece shoves up in there. You put that nut on there, and then you screw on the antenna. So I'm gonna JB weld this all up, stick it back in, and then reassemble everything. The only other thing that I didn't talk about was the Allen key hex bolts that secure this whole body section to this bar that's part of the mounting bar or whatever. I loosened them all off, but I didn't need to do that. They just secure, they go through the bar and mount into these aluminum housing pieces here, but we didn't need to do that. I just thought it was maybe something I had to loosen, so honestly, you could just leave those. I hope this video helped, and if you have any questions, throw them in the comments below, and don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button.